for having me here today. My name is Adam Fries. I'm the unit forester for CAL FIRE. And CAL FIRE is responsible for enforcing forest and fire laws in California. The forest practice rules are really comprehensive. I could probably spend 6 months up here talking about it, so I'll try to boil it down real quick to what's going to affect you guys. If you're going to be clearing land on what's considered timberland is when these rules come into effect. Timberland's independent of any kind of county zoning or anything like that. If there's commercial tree species growing on the site, they don't have to. They can be dead or alive, big or small. That meets the definition of timberland, and all these rules come into effect. I have the handouts here and at the back table, and all those commercial species are listed out, and there's contact numbers for you guys to call if you have any questions. But if you guys are going to be clearing land and it's considered timberland is when all these rules come into effect. Timber operations, for it to be considered timber operations, you kind of have, it's a two-prong test. If the trees that you're cutting down are going to be bartered, sold, exchanged, or traded, there's permits that are required. The second thing is if you're converting timberland to a use other than growing trees, it's considered timber operations, and it doesn't matter what happens to the wood. Even if you're milling them into boards and using them to build a fence or piling up and burning them, just the act of converting timberland to a use other than growing trees kicks in all these rules. So it'll be real important that keep that in mind. So go ahead.
Is that timberland is a zone forest?
No, it's
timber. It's just any zone.
If those trees are there, it's timberland. It doesn't matter if it's a subdivision in Arnold or SPI where it's a zoned timber production zone. It's independent of any kind of zoning. If the commercial trees are there, it meets the definition of timberland, and the forest practice rules kick in. So, before you can harvest trees to clear, you need to have a timber harvest plan prepared by a registered professional forester. If it's an area less than 3 acres in size that you're converting, there is an exemption that you might qualify for. That's an abbreviated, it's a few pages and a map, but it still has to be prepared by a registered professional forester. So the main thing you need to know, you don't really need to know all the rules. You just need to know if you're working in timberland and you plan to cut trees, you need to get a forester out there to look at it. And there's a list on these forms that I have. There's a list of contacts. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Is the timberland just the whole parcel? Is timberland if there's one tree? So any tree you cut on that parcel, or is it just if you're cutting one of those?
So if for it to be timberland, those commercial trees have to be present. Yes. For it to be timber operations, which kicks the rules in as well, you have to be cutting or removing those trees. So if you don't have to cut a tree, you're not doing timber operations. But if you do, even if it's a small tree and it's a commercial tree species, it's timber operations.
I guess my question is, what if you're only cutting non-commercial species?
No. So if you're down in like Valley Springs and it's blue oaks, they're not a commercial. So the commercial tree species, there's a list of them on this handout. And always, if you have a question, our contact number's here, and we can come out and take a look.
I guess my question is, you have a commercial tree and a non-commercial tree. You cut down the non-commercial tree, and is that
No,
timber?
it has to be a commercial tree species that you're cutting down. And it's commercial tree species. It's not commercial tree size. So some people say if it's less than 12, or you'll hear if it's less than 6. None of that matters. If it's a commercial tree species is when it kicks in. Yeah. So the other part is timber operations can only be done by a licensed timber operator. And so can't be a contractor, can't be a tree service. So the timber operations, the clearing of those trees can only be done by a licensed timber operator with a plan. So the main thing is just keep that in mind. Like I said, this handout has lots of contact information and stuff. That should help you guys out. And then the last one of those that will affect you guys is that if you are converting timberland to use other than growing trees, besides the timber harvest plan, there's also a conversion permit that specifically the timberland owner is responsible to get. By the law specifies it's the timberland owner that's responsible for that. So forced practice rules are, they're a big deal for us. They're misdemeanors, and we enforce them criminally and civilly, so it's real important to abide by them. And the reason they're important is that they're affecting those resources that impact everybody. So if someone just pushes a bunch of pine trees over, it can create a fire hazard, a pest hazard that impacts not just the property owner, but everybody around them. From the fire prevention side of things, issues that we've run into are from campfires. And then a big one is with stationary equipment. So either generators starting fires or grinding and welding are big ones. So just keep in mind that the Public Resource Code requires 10 feet of clearance if you have generators or you're doing any grinding or welding, 10 feet of clearance and a shovel and a water source. And debris burning is the other one. So right now we're in the time of year where CAL FIRE doesn't require burn permits right now. Typically it's May 1st. So right now while we're in open burning, there's no requirements on pile sizes. You just have to maintain control of the fire. Conditions are really dry this year, and we've been having a lot of escapes. So we might end up going to permits sooner. We're just kind of monitoring conditions for now. But that's something that we're really concerned with, so keep that in mind. And then typically after, once we start getting dry, they'll suspend burning. But from that period, typically from May 1st until there's a proclamation issued that basically we're out of fire season, burn permits are required. And that's about it. That's all I have. Thank you guys for your time.
Adam, can you take a few questions if people have any?
Any questions for me?
If the audience doesn't have any, I have one. I know that you mentioned that failure to comply with the forest practices regulations can result in penalties and even criminal penalties.
Yes.
If someone does it inadvertently, are there mitigation measures they can undertake to avoid penalties or anything like that, or is it just strict liability if they cut down trees that are commercial?
So typically what will
Use a
happen
mic, sorry.
So typically,
Sorry.
if that's the case, what we'll do is forward a civil case, and there's an opportunity for settlement to mitigate any, they factor in extenuating circumstances, that type of thing. And then oftentimes if there's significant impacts that need to be mitigated, there's an opportunity to mitigate those and for a lesser amount. So
Basically ask before you cut.
it makes things way simpler if folks follow the rules up front. And again, if it's a small area, the less than 3 acre conversion exemption, if that applies, is a pretty abbreviated process, and it's pretty simple to comply with. And again, if that work's done by a licensed timber operator, all the dealing with the logs, the slash cleanup, all that stuff is pretty smooth sailing. It avoids a lot of problems. So
if you had somebody come in and clean your acre, okay, and they said, oh, no, this is in a burn area, you don't have to worry about anything like that, and they did it, and you paid them, should we come talk to you and make sure we're okay, the guy that did the clearing for us?
So again, we'll take everything into account, but remember, the landowner has responsibility to obtain the conversion permit. So, yeah. But the point about
following somebody's, oh no, you don't need that.
Yeah, and if there's folks out there steering people down the wrong path and doing, saying you don't need anything,
You want their business done?
yeah, I'd like to know about it so we can deal with it. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Anything else for me? Thank you, guys.